Hey, what's going on, guys? Jake Verdon Tech here, back with another video. And today we are taking a look at, for probably the third time, hopefully you guys aren't getting too sick of these videos, but for the third time, we're taking a look at my Xbox Series X/S controller, and we're going to be doing another mod to this controller. In this video, we're going to be doing the hair trigger mod from eXtremeRate on this particular controller, and we're going to talk about how this could be the ultimate DIY Xbox Series X/Series S controller. So the hair trigger mod from eXtremeRate is a pretty simple mod as far as the hardware goes. Basically just comes with two buttons that mount behind your triggers on the inside and a couple of brackets that hold those. And then you could basically just solder a couple wires coming from each of those into the upper board on the inside of the Xbox controller. And this mod reduces the travel of the trigger pull on the Xbox controller, going from about 7.5 millimeters to about 1.5 millimeters. So starting off with this mod, the first thing we're going to need to do is disassemble the controller by just popping off the hand grips, removing the torque screws that hold the rear of the controller and the faceplate together, and then it comes apart pretty easily. One thing to note that my disassembly is probably going to look significantly different from yours because I did do the install with the rear button kit in the last controller video we did, so I do have that mod on this controller as well. Luckily, that doesn't interfere with anything for the hair trigger mod, as all the points that we need to solder to are still perfectly accessible. So once we got our controller disassembled and prepped, we're going to mount the button PCBs to the brackets for the hair triggers. The brackets will be labeled LT and RT, or left and right, and then also the button PCBs also are marked LT and RT, so make sure you match those up. And the button PCBs slide into and just kind of clip into the little teeth on the bracket. Starting off with the right trigger, we are going to solder the lower wire on the button PCB to the ground. And this particular ground is kind of located on the central left side of the board on the inside of the controller. I will also show the eXtremeRate diagram so you guys can reference that as well too. The next solder point for the right trigger is a little point called TP67, which is kind of centrally located on the upper board. And for this one, we're going to need to solder the upper wire on the right trigger to TP67. Then very similarly goes for the left trigger. We're going to solder the lower wire to another ground point found on the right side of the board. And then there is another point called TP68 that we're going to solder the upper wire to. And once again, this is going to look quite a bit different on my controller because I do have the rear button mod and I do have a ribbon PCB that's going across here, but the labels still show and it's in the same location as where you would normally solder it. Now for mounting the hair trigger assemblies, you are going to need to remove the bumpers. That way the triggers have full range and you can mount them underneath. Now for mounting the hair triggers, it's super easy. Just remove the screw that holds on the trigger cap, and then they basically just kind of clip in perfectly underneath. And the screw holes for the hair trigger mount line up perfectly with the mounting holes for the trigger cap underneath. Once this is done, you can button back up the controller. Just make sure that the hair trigger, where they make contact on the PCB, make sure they aren't interfering with its own wires or any other wires on the inside of the controller, and there's plenty of clearance. From there, you are good to reassemble the controller. So after the rear button mod that we did not too long ago and the hair trigger mod we did in this video, I think we might have the ultimate DIY Xbox Series X/S controller that you could assemble. I think the hair trigger is an awesome mod to add to this controller. I gotta say though, for me, it's gonna be kind of hard to get used to. I know the first few games that I played with it, it was super weird, but I can definitely see where there could be an advantage having that shorter distance of travel. The rear button mod is definitely a game changer when it comes to different first-person shooters, as if you're someone like me who just has a standard controller grip and you don't claw grip, taking your thumb off of the right stick is definitely a disadvantage when you have to hit the A button or you have to weapon swap. Having those functions mapped to the back of the controller is a big game changer, especially in games like Halo Infinite, where it can make your movement a little bit more fluid. Other games like Overwatch 2, there's certain heroes in the game where you do end up using A quite a bit, and taking your thumb off of that right stick is super tough, especially when you get into different engagements and you're trying to shoot at the same time. It can be a big challenge, but when you map those to the back, you no longer have to remove your thumb from the right stick, and you still have all those controls on the back. Now, lastly, I wanted to talk about some of the other options out there that give you these features as far as controllers go. There are a couple first-party options, but then also a bunch of third-party options when it comes to aftermarket controllers. They give you features like rear buttons and paddles and high performance hair triggers. As far as first party option goes, the most notable one is probably the Elite controller or the Elite Series 2 controller from Xbox. This is probably one of the more popular options when it comes to selecting a controller with paddles and some aftermarket trigger features. And the Elite 2 controller, from everything I've heard, they're really great, especially the Series 2. I know the first iteration, I've heard some people having issues with them, but the Series 2 is kind of a more revised version, and I think they got rid of some of the issues that they had with the Series 1. And overall, it's a great option for a controller with a lot of different features. Sitting up at the top of the line with the Elite Series 2 controller is probably the Scuff Instinct or the Instinct Pro, as it's a really popular premium option when it comes to a controller that gives you a lot of features such as like different paddles and different trigger features. And then when you do purchase one, you got a lot of customization options. Both of these controllers are probably the best in their class and top of the line. The only thing that comes with these ones though is a hefty price tag. I think these Elite Series 2 controller is going to run you about $180, and then the Scuff Instinct and Instinct Pro, I think they start at $200 and go up depending on how much you customize them. Then talking about some more third-party options that are a little bit more budget friendly. Some of the more popular ones are like the Turtle Beach Recon controller, which is a wired controller that gives you quite a few features, and then it also gives you a variety of different functions on the back. And then probably the most popular budget friendly third-party controller that gives you some of these features is the PowerA Fusion Pro 2, which is another wired controller that gives you paddles and different trigger adjustments on the back. And overall is probably one of the most popular options as far as a more budget friendly one goes that gives you all of these features. But if you don't really want to go up to a premium option like the Elite Series 2 or the Scuff Instinct, and aren't really fond of some of the third-party budget options that give you some of these extra features, the way that I went, I think, is an awesome way to go, especially if you're a little bit adventurous and you don't mind doing a little bit of tinkering. Customizing your own like I did in installing the eXtremeRate Hope Remap Kit for the rear buttons and the hair trigger assembly from eXtremeRate isn't too difficult of an installation and is pretty budget friendly. Considering that you already have a controller, the Hope Remap Kit from eXtremeRate that gives you the rear buttons usually runs around $40. And then the hair trigger kit from eXtremeRate usually runs around $15. So overall, the mod is pretty inexpensive. It is a little bit tricky to install. It's not too bad. There's just a lot of different soldering points and things to kind of look out for. But the instructions are all really clear from eXtremeRate, and I do have a couple tutorials on the channel aside from this one. But overall, the installation isn't too hard at all, and I like that this is all on a factory OEM controller. So this can still be obviously used wirelessly on your different Xbox consoles, and you could also connect it to your PC via USB and use it for PC games as well. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for checking this one out. Really just wanted to kind of take you along for the ride on installing the hair trigger kit from eXtremeRate and kind of discuss why I think this is probably the ultimate DIY Xbox controller you can build, and some of the other options on the market if you are looking for a controller that has some different features like your buttons or paddles and some adjustable hair triggers. I think this is my favorite option out of the bunch because I like DIY stuff, and it's nice, you know, putting your own personal touch on something, especially when it's something you use all the time and can appreciate the performance gain you get out of it. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like on it, and if you want to see more tech related videos like this one, be sure to subscribe. Got to give a big shout out to you guys as we just hit 2,000 subscribers on the channel. I can't thank you all enough for the subscriptions, the views, all the great comments I get from you guys. I really appreciate it all, so thanks a bunch. And thank you for checking this one out, guys, and I will see you in the next video.